everybody, and welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Lori, and I want to talk to you about shame and guilt. We've done this before, but I'm going to do it again. Shame is never, ever, 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 ever in the million years of life has it ever been effective. Shame is control. Oh, you should feel bad. I'm your mom. You should have called me for Mother's Day. Shame on you. No, now you're trying to control a narrative. They're your adult kid. They don't have to call you for Mother's Day. You're trying to shame them into doing something that you want them to do. And that's the same thing that was happened to you. Shame on you for doing that. Shame on you. They're trying to make you feel bad to manipulate the situation. So if you're shaming somebody, that's you manipulating. You're trying to manipulate it for somebody to make you feel a certain way or do how you want them to do. Same way, other way around. When people try to shame you, they can only shame you if you allow that to happen. Right? So let's say my mom and dad have both passed, but let's say, I don't know, my mom was like, you didn't call, for some reason, I just didn't call her. You didn't call me on Mother's Day. You should be ashamed of yourself. Well, I obviously didn't call for a reason, or maybe I forgot, and I might say that. I might be like, oh, well, sorry, I forgot. But if we're not doing great, or if I feel some kind of way, I'm not going to do that just because of that. And she can't shame me. She couldn't shame me if I know that I'm doing something to protect my peace. I'm not going to be shamed in it. They may not like it. And that's what you have to understand. That is a boundary. So you have to understand people will, not might, they will try to shame you when you're on your own health healing journey, because a lot of things aren't going to go their way anymore, where they could utilize you before and they could shame you into things and they could make you feel some kind of way. Hard pass. Hard pass. And I did a podcast on this before, and I may even go back and revisit it because a lot of people have a really hard time with this. Now, I'm going to go back to that, but guilt can be effective if you don't let it go to shame, but if you're like, ooh, hoo-wee, that was kind of really messed up on my part, my bad. Let's not feel guilty about it long. Let's learn it from the lesson. See, shame prevents lessons. You're catching yourself in this shame cycle and you're beating yourself up and you're saying, I should have done this and this is what's happening and I can't believe this. And okay, FYI, no growth there. None. Just like I don't have regrets, and I've done a lot of not so amazing things like most of us have in our life. But they're not regrets because I've taken the lesson from them. They stay regrets when you keep beating yourself up against the wall and you keep saying, well, I should have done this. I could have done this. Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? How come that didn't happen? What's wrong with me? And then you go, I could have done it different. That time's not coming back. Let it go. Accept the fact that it's done. So if you take it and go, wow, that was woof. If you need to apologize once. Don't go on some apology tour. And just because you apologize, somebody doesn't have to be like, oh, okay. They can just be like, all right, but they don't have to mess with you, including family. So what you do to remove it as being a regret is you take the lesson so going forward, you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to do better. Well, that's all you can do. That goes with self-love, self-esteem, self-confidence, but mostly self-love. Okay, so when you do that, you can feel a little guilty about it and go, oh gosh, okay, what's the lesson here? Shame, on the other hand, I never co-sign for shame, right? At no point is shame healthy or helpful. Guilt can be, because you can change who you are, You can change those actions to no longer do that. It's a learning curve. You've learned from it. Beautiful, great. I love it. I love it. So when people say things like, well, I feel guilty if I cut off my sister. Why? Well, because I don't want to hurt her feelings. Okay, so how's the relationship for you? Well, it's not great. It's super stressful for me. Okay, so her comfort is more important than your peace. Why? Right? And here's the part people don't like to hear. Just because somebody seems toxic to you, there's a good chance you seem toxic to them. Yep, I said it. Because you're just not compatible, and that's okay. That's all right. You don't have to be, including family, right? So when you're in that space, and I think maybe I will go a little deeper into the podcast on this too, because I feel like so many people struggle with putting themselves as a priority, because when they were younger, they were told, taking care of yourself is selfish. You can't be first. No, that's, again, a control mechanism. If you think about it, I'm 51 years old. So I grew up in the time where it was speak only when spoken to. Don't do as I do as I say. I know I'm contradicting myself, but You do what I'm telling you to do. Oh, like, oh, you don't feel that way. No, 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 no. Get it together. Right. So you have to understand these are people who allowed, because they did the best they could with what they had. I mean, these are people whose parents and grandparents and all these people were also dealing with unhealed trauma. And then our parents and our people who raised us also had unhealed trauma. So you kind of give it. So somebody has to break a cycle. It might as well be you. And you're going to make people upset and you're going to make people angry. But are you more important than their comfort? The answer to that question is absolutely. And if it isn't, then you know that you're lacking in that self-love. And I think that's a big piece for you, is realizing that the guilt can be helpful if you learn and you move forward, but under no circumstances, zero part of the planet is shame beneficial. Shame is always out of manipulation and control. So if someone walks up to you and goes, shame on you for doing this. Oh, because I'm not doing what you want me to. Got it. Or how you did. It's fine. Like, you have to be clear in that people can control you when you allow that to happen. But then you don't get to go victim mentality behind that and go, well, I don't understand why they're this way. If you keep stepping on that same stone every time you walk on the patio and you get mad at the stone 3 years later for it being a stone, that's no longer the stone. The first time I'd be like, oh, the stone was there. Yeah, but if you keep doing the same thing and expect the stone to do something different, well, that's the reality check. But you try to shame someone into something to manipulate that situation, ooh, problematic. Massively problematic. Now, how do you deal with the inner part of the feeling, right? You can say, okay, I know this logically, but I'm going to feel it. That's okay. You got to feel it to heal it. You have to be committed to being okay with people not understanding, not wanting to understand, not ever going to see it from your perspective, and just not vibing. If you're not okay with that, then you're still in that people-pleasing fawn response. It's going to be a problem. It's going to be a big problem. And so when you allow yourself that space to sit with yourself and say, okay, how important am I to yourself? To myself, to myself, not to yourself. How important are you to yourself? How important am I to myself? Well, your mental health matters, because your mental health goes into your physical health. And if you're allowing everybody else to kind of like, they're not sucking anything dry from you. You're allowing that to happen. And if you're allowing yourself to be put in a position where they're telling you this is your fault and this is why, and if you don't do this, that means you don't love me. Oh my God, that's gaslighting manipulation 101. Well, if you love me, you would do this. Oh my God, that's a red flag. Go in the complete other direction. That's gaslighting. If people are like, well, if you love me, you would do this. I would do that. Okay, I'm not. So see, that's what I'm saying. So that's why you have to be careful. And again, shame is never, not even a little bit, never, 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 ever. And I'll say never much, but shame is never going to be coming from a place that isn't me, my, I. So if you're shaming somebody, it's all about you. And if they're shaming it, it's all about them. And I don't mean it's all about them like, hey, they need to be their best priority, because they do need to be their priority. But I mean, this is where it's like, well, you hurt my feelings. This is what you did. And you're my kid, and you're my dad, and you're my husband. And listen, if it is not moving the needle forward, it's not moving the needle at all. It's keeping you stuck. But don't blame the stone for being a stone, because then we go into the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And it's so important that you get that. Because if not, you're going to keep either allowing yourself to be shamed because you need to please everybody else. No, that's a trauma response. So you need to work through that trauma. You got to feel it to heal it. Don't keep blaming other people. Don't keep blaming your circumstances. There is a solution, but you have to be willing to seek it. And you have to take ownership of it. The moment you go, yeah, but my husband, or yeah, but my kid, stop right there. Pause and check inward. Okay? And don't go shaming other people, and don't allow yourself to be shamed. If somebody comes at you and they start shaming, say, listen, you know what? I do not allow myself to be shamed. Just like I do not allow myself to be spoken to, I do not, or you can even say that, I do not allow myself to be spoken to that way. I don't allow myself to be shamed. And I'm not going to have this conversation with you again. Boundaries. And vice versa. You don't get to say that and then shame somebody. Like, you have to also adhere to that. You don't have to you don't really have to understand what their boundaries are. But you know what? You're going to have to rock with it. It is what it is. So the next time you put yourself first and somebody doesn't do, or they try to shame you, remember, this is about control from them. Don't allow them to win a chess game and then get mad at them when you gave them the pieces to win that game.